What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American, here today to react and learn about Moving Day in Quebec. Now, if you are Canadian, then a few days ago, you may have celebrated Canada Day. But from what I understand, not all Canadians were doing that. And if you live in Quebec, instead, you may have been busy breaking your back, moving things, because recently I found out that on Canada Day in Quebec, they're actually celebrating Moving Day, where everybody has to move out of their apartments or place of living because a whole bunch of leases have expired. It's a very interesting phenomenon, and I had absolutely no idea that this was a thing in Canada and that it was on Canada Day. So I just want to learn a bit more about this and how this all got started and what exactly it's like. So, with that being said, let's take a look.
But up in Quebec, about 120,000 French Canadians will celebrate today by moving into a new apartment.
Wow.
And if you think that sounds like a lame way to celebrate Canada's birthday, you'd be right.
Oh, no. Yeah, that's a good question, actually. If you're in Quebec and you're one of the people who has to do Moving Day, well, I don't know. I'm a bit confused. Does everyone participate in Moving Day? Do only a small part of the population? This video says only 7% of Montreal moves. So maybe it's a small part of the Quebec population that actually takes part. But is everyone, like, acknowledging Moving Day? Is it a holiday? Is it like, does everyone kind of acknowledge it? Or is it even really a celebration? Or is it just a pain? I have a lot of questions about this, actually. But back onto my train of thought is what they were getting at. Do people in Quebec, like, get distracted by Moving Day? Or are you also trying to, celebrate Canada Day? Because it's Canada Day, Yeah, I wonder. Let's keep going, though.
It turns out that this yearly mass migration has nothing to do with Canada Day.
Oh.
It's just a coincidence. The real explanation has to do with some archaic laws, some urban logistics, and oh boy, I smell content. Strap in.
Some weird laws and logistics. That's why Moving Day is on July 1st. Because I was wondering about that. It's just a coincidence? Don't you think maybe it would be a good idea to, move Moving Day to another day? Isn't it kind of a bummer that it's on Canada Day? Like, instead of celebrating this holiday, getting off work, enjoying yourself, shooting off a firework or two, you might have to, be hauling a sofa into a moving van or something, right? Of all the days, July 1st, well, let's figure out why it is on Canada Day, actually.
People were doing a long-winded explanation of Moving Day.
Okay.
Quebec's Moving Day dates back, way back, all the way back to when Quebec wasn't just culturally a giant unnecessary extension of France, but legally a giant unnecessary extension of France.
Really?
In fact, at the time, it was just called New France, which meant that it basically had the same legal system as Old France, but in a slightly different accent.
This goes all the way back to when it was called New France. This is way back in Canadian history. This is how far back Moving Day goes to? Well, that makes more sense then, because they probably didn't, have Canada Day yet. Maybe Moving Day came first. Maybe Canada Day needs to realize that it put itself on Moving Day. Moving Day was here first. That'd be kind of funny if that's the truth.
Now, prior to the French Revolution, some parts of France were operating under a system called manorialism. Well, actually, it's really called the régime seigneurial, but my writers originally wrote around that since they thought I couldn't pronounce it, but they forgot that I am literally a genius. Essentially, manorialism, or the régime seigneurial, works by dividing the king's land into self-sustaining farming communities that were maintained by independent farmers, and those farmers then paid rent to a landlord in either money, labor, or crops.
Okay.
This is the origin of the system that's going to prevent you from ever owning any property outside of a well-indexed Magic the Gathering collection, but I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Basically, this way of managing land largely took the king out of the equation, which made it ideal for a colony on the other side of the planet that had really bad internet at the time.
This was back when, like, Canada and New France were heavily under the influence of, like, the British Empire still. So we're talking about a society of people who are, like, underneath a landowner, sort of using the land, farming, whatever, and they have to pay that landowner. It's like the olden time version of a landlord that would be the modern day equivalent. Okay.
The French colonial government split up New France among a handful of landlords and then took on a group of habitants, or farmer settlers, to work their land.
Okay.
These landlords were entitled to a certain amount of labor from their tenants, but in return, they had to offer certain services and protections. For example, they were required to build a grits mill for their tenants to grind their wheat, and more importantly, they couldn't legally kick a tenant off their land until the winter snow had melted.
Really? Wow, way back then? They had, like, labor laws, or at least, like, land ownership laws, leasing laws. I'm pretty surprised. Like, not something I would expect them to necessarily care about back then. That's pretty cool. They actually, like, had benefits for people who are leasing the land. A grain mill. Okay. And you also couldn't kick out somebody until the end of winter? Is that how we are arriving, like, at July 1st for this date, this moving day date?
This was because, in 18th century Canada, evicting a tenant in the winter was essentially a death sentence.
Right.
I mean, it still is, but your lease probably has a clause stating that your landlord can kill you whenever they want, so that's on you for not reading the fine print.
Oh my gosh, you gotta be kidding me. That makes so much sense. That is so funny. It's literally because it's Canada and it has such a harsh, intense winter. There were laws hundreds of years ago about when you can end someone's lease. You gotta wait till the end of winter or before kicking them out of their home or they'll die. A little morbid, but that makes a lot of sense. Okay.
Anyways, this law was formalized in 1866 when the government set all urban leases to be renewed on May 1st.
Okay.
This became known as Moving Day.
Oh, it was May 1st. It was originally May 1st. It could have been May 1st. Why did it change? Then Canada Day and Moving Day could have been on different days. Okay, it was May 1st at first.
Fast forward 2 world wars and 2 seasons of Kojak to 1974, and Moving Day was causing some problems.
Okay.
Specifically, schools were still in session when everyone had to move, so kids would get home on May 1st and have no idea where everyone went. Or I guess they'd have to change schools mid-year.
Oh, because the family is literally moving, changing their home. If your parents' lease ran out on May 1st, kids are still in school. They're coming home from school. And it's like moving day, and all their stuff is like on the street. Okay, this is actually like, I was kind of skeptical, but this actually seems pretty like well thought out. Like it actually makes, all this is making sense so far.
But either way, Quebec decided to repeal the mandatory moving day to make things easier for families and extended all current leases 2 extra months to July 1st. Even though these new leases could be renewed whenever, the vast majority of people decided that July 1st sounded like a good moving day and just kept doing it.
That's why moving day is July 1st? Because most people just went, okay, sounds good. That's honestly like most the reason why. Okay.
even to this day. Now, while syncing up
Wow.
everyone's leases sounds convenient, it can actually be a huge logistical headache.
Yeah.
This is especially true in the city of Montreal, where around 7% of their entire population, or around 115,000 people, need to move all their stuff all at once.
Wow. Over 100,000 people just in Montreal. But this is all over Quebec, this moving day. So everyone's lease runs out, and you're trying to line up and sign a new lease or move into your new apartment or new place that you're renting or whatever, and everyone's doing it at the same time. Oh my God, think of the traffic. Think of trying to rent a moving van. All of this happening on the same day. That would be a nightmare. Actually, what am I saying? This just happened. I'm so sorry. Well, if you're watching this and you're in Quebec, you survived because moving day happened earlier this week. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. That sounds like a nightmare.
On top of that, most of these moves are into other apartments in Montreal. The city has the lowest
Right.
home ownership rate in the country, and apartments are relatively affordable, so it's fairly easy to just swap apartments if you're feeling bored or if your upstairs neighbor just got really into K-pop.
Yeah, it's difficult enough moving. That's a big pain. But moving on the same day that everyone is moving? Oh my gosh. You'd think that most people would try to not move on moving day, which seems to be the case. Only 7% in Montreal do. But that's still so many people. Wow.
For the city, this means rerouting hundreds of thousands of pieces of mail in a single day, dealing with upwards of $10 million worth of cleanup costs, and reconnecting nearly 7 different landlines.
Oh man, what a headache this sounds like. Oh, what a headache. Yeah, new addresses, new mailing addresses, repairs. Wow, all in one day.
For moving companies, it can be even more exhausting,
Yeah.
even if moving day sounds like a fake holiday invented by an evil moving company to get people to move. Rather than have their business spread out throughout the year, these companies need to be prepared to make a huge chunk of their profits in the span of just a few days.
Right. It's like how some companies make all of their money on Valentine's Day or Christmas, selling Christmas stuff. This is a seasonal business in Quebec. There's the moving day, the moving month, July.
Most can expect to make about 15% of their yearly revenue on moving day alone.
Wow.
In order to keep up with demand, local moving companies also tend to double or triple their rates around the holiday, so you're probably better off being kicked out in the dead of winter anyway.
I was gonna say, that makes a lot of sense. The moving companies know, July 1st, everyone needs a moving van or a moving crew, and they're gonna hike their prices. Oh man. Oh, this makes it even worse thinking about what the poor Quebecois went through earlier this week. Oh my gosh, I'm glad it's over for you.
So, also because it's July 1st, it's a new fiscal year for Microsoft, the state of Delaware, and plenty of other esteemed institutions. And you know what they say, new fiscal year, new me. So, make FY21 to 22 count and better yourself by learning.
Oh, I think this is just an ad. Okay. All right, that's the end of that video. Wow. I will never think of Canada Day the same, knowing that there's all these poor people in Quebec paying out the wazoo all this money, trying to race each other into the whatever apartments are available. Wow. What a fascinating phenomenon that exists in Canada. I had never heard about this until very recently when I was learning about Canada Day a little more. I just want to take a quick look at this video. This is like a news report on Montreal Moving Day. That's from real life, and I just want to see what it looks like. Let's go on the ground and see what it looks like in Montreal on Moving Day. There they go.
If they don't find something for 1st of July, they're completely out in the street. That's reality right now. So.
Oh wow, God, this makes this seem kind of sad. I'm sure there are people struggling, because if your lease is ending, there's no guarantee that you've found other accommodations. July 1st, for a lot of people in Quebec, must be a very, very stressful time.
And it's happening in these neighborhoods of the Southwest, but also elsewhere in Montreal.
In provinces across the country, many are celebrating Canada Day. But for Quebecers, it's all about this. July 1st, moving day. For some, it won't be from one home to a new one. An estimated 77 households will be homeless.
Wow. Oh, this is so sad. People are this about struggling on moving day. It's already tough enough. But you might not even have gotten a new living arrangement.
The housing crisis in Montreal is getting worse. Just within the Southwest Borough, its housing committee, PAPIR, have received notice of approximately a dozen people who risk being homeless as of July 1st.
Wow. Look at all these moving vans. You got Penske? I saw a U-Haul. That's very popular in America, a U-Haul.
The city is offering emergency housing to those who couldn't find a place to stay by July 1st.
That's good.
But some say the bureaucracy gets in the way of efficiency. Many are struggling to actually get the emergency housing they need.
They have super specific criteria and asking for a lot of things. So in the end, it's really, really limited what they offer. And that's a big problem.
Is there still a housing crisis going on in Montreal now? Because this is an old news report. Wow.
Renting moving trucks has been another big hassle, many making reservations many months in advance and finding trucks only off-island with strict time limits.
You have to rent your moving truck months in advance. I mean, I guess that makes sense. Oh, what a pain. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting secondhand pain from all the stuff you got to go through on this moving day.
It was super hard. We actually had to go to Boucherville, and it wasn't even my reservation. It was like a friend's reservation who they canceled. It's like every truck on the island of Montreal, and even in like Brassard and Longueuil and stuff was taken. So
Wow.
it's pretty, it was difficult. And
It's like a dog-eat-dog world. Everyone's like desperately fighting over the limited number of moving trucks.
expensive.
Matthew Tawa, who moved into his Point St. Charles apartment on Friday, said it took several months to find a place.
My other roommate also struggling to find something. Again, they found it, so I don't know anybody who failed to find one, but it was a grind.
Some
Oh, and it takes you like months and months to find new living. At least in Montreal, like I understand, it's a big, crowded Canadian city.
didn't succeed at all. Saba Naurin from Montreal North has been looking for an apartment for herself and 2 children for over 2 years.
What?
Naurin wants to give her teens their own separate rooms and be free of the cockroaches and bugs in her current place.
Oh
She's
my
been turned down
God.
countless times, even after applying and providing the proper documents.
But it's really frustrating, finding an apartment out with within your affordability, within your budget. That seems impossible.
Wow, yeah, this is kind of giving me a different point of view on moving day. Like, people really struggling, honestly, for a variety of different reasons. Moving day seems quite hard, quite stressful. Do people in Quebec have time to kind of relax and enjoy Canada Day? You know, that's something I've been wondering as well. But there you have it. I just wanted to kind of take some time to learn more about this moving day in Canada, because I heard about it a few days ago, learning about Canada Day, and it's like, wait, there's like a whole other holiday, quote unquote holiday, going on in Quebec. It doesn't seem nearly as fun as Canada Day, celebrating. Just like stressful, like trying to find a place to live, moving all your stuff, paying lots of money. Gosh, whoo! If you survived, good for you. And this is probably bringing back bad memories. I'm sorry, but I definitely learned something today. That was really interesting. We don't have anything comparable to this here in the United States, so this is quite unique. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like or leave a comment with your thoughts on moving day. If you've ever experienced moving day and your experiences, that'd be very interesting to hear about. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Canada and Canadian culture, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.